our defensive medicine, which is big. We also need to let insurance companies compete across state lines. That would drive down costs. We need to talk about preventative medicine. The highest return on investment is how do we prevent people from getting sick? How do we promote wellness? All those things need to be addressed. And a huge access here in rural Kansas is accessibility to health care. My mother from Quinter, she had cancer a few years ago and had to drive 60 miles here to Hayes to for radiology for 3 months. And on one hand, it's 120 miles round trip, grueling. On the other hand, we're thankful there was a hospital here, Hayes Medical Center, versus having to go on to Salina. So access is a big issue here in Kansas, and that's not really addressed in this bill.
And so these are all elements of your Mann plan, and they seem so commonsensical that I guess the question to follow then is, why hasn't somebody pushed for this before?
That's a great question, and I think it's because there are so many people that are politicians in Washington that are so tied to special interest groups that it really prevents them from doing the right thing. When I was in Washington, one thing I saw repeatedly, Chap, which is really sad for me, is that there are so many members of Congress that are so busy keeping their job, they're not willing to do their job. And they're focused on the next election, making sure they get elected. They get their identity or their sense of who they are as a person from this position, not by doing the right thing. If elected, I will do the right thing. Incredibly important to me.
Okay, so that's health care, but for me particularly, and for a lot of people, the financial health of the country is a serious concern. In fact, for me, I look at the deficit and the debt, and that's what scares me the most. So for folks like me who are concerned about that, do you have something on
the
offer?
Mann plan addresses that in great detail. 4 things we need to do, and I share your concern. When I look at the future viability of our country, our debt and deficit is the biggest threat that I see. Government has doubled in size over the last 10 years. Doubled in size. It's astronomical. And that's not just, that's a Republican and a Democrat issue. 4 things I think we need to do. Number 1, we've got to stop spending so much money. We can't continue to bail out private companies, try to spend our way out of the recession, pass stimulus bills. We just can't afford it. Number 2, Chap, I think that we need to eliminate earmarks, or at least for dramatic earmark reform. I think that earmarks are the gateway drug to Washington's spending addiction, if that makes sense.
I like that analogy, the gateway drug.
Yeah, and Washington, I think, is addicted to spending, and earmarks are a huge part of that. Thirdly, we need to push for a balanced budget amendment. At least at the state level, the state legislature has to balance the budget. They have to make the hard decision. Congress keeps punting that to the next generation, which is not good. And fourthly, we need to talk in terms of dollars per American. These bills are so big, $1 trillion. It's hard to comprehend. Every $1 trillion is $3,300 per person or per American. We need to start communicating those ways so that people can make up their own mind about these spending bills.
Well, and talking about spending, you look at the fiscal year 2010-2011 budget. It's been pitched in there. I believe the exact number is $3.7 trillion spending. Of that, 1.8 is deficit.
Right.
Is there that much to cut in the budget that we can get that down to a point where we're not at least adding more debt to the overall $12 trillion debt that we've incurred?
I think there is. I think there's a lot of efficiencies to be found in government. And if we just did 3 things, which sounds simple, but if we did 3 things, we could come within $150 billion of balancing the budget this year, which in Washington terms would be basically a balanced budget. If we didn't spend the rest of the stimulus money that's been allocated but not spent yet, if we required the TARP money to be repaid, and a lot of banks are to place to repay it, and if we returned to 2008 spending levels, if we did those 3 things, the budget would be almost balanced this year. Senator Coburn the other day proposed an amendment to cut federal spending by 5% this year, which a lot of Kansans have had to tighten their belt by a lot more than 5%. 5%, that amendment failed. There's really no political will in Washington to curb spending, but we've got to for the future of our country.
And so even if we elect you and you're bringing these ideas, there's still a culture in Washington, D.C. that's going to be very, very hard to change. Do you think that you can be a part of changing that environment?
I absolutely
just as
do.
one member.
I absolutely do. And it's one member, and we've got to start somewhere, but it's also building relationships and coalitions with other new and older, but there's going to be a large freshman class of Republicans this year. I plan to hit the ground running because most likely nothing's a sure thing in politics, but once we get to the Republican primary, I'm immediately going to start reaching out to the other Republicans that it looks like they're going to be coming into office so that we have a coalesced group, if you will, that's already starting to think about our country and can hit the ground running. huge opportunity to build a lot of alliances and do a lot of good things for this country.
Sort of building a network.
Absolutely. Okay. Absolutely.
And as far as your network goes, that starts with the constituents here in the district. We mentioned Jerry Moran quite a bit, and obviously he's built a network that really, really covers this district. 69 counties. You have to be very aggressive about what we call the shoe leather campaign. You've mentioned you've hit, what, 50 plus of the counties so far?
We have, and we'll be in the others here by the end of the month. So we're out campaigning all the time. Nothing I love more than to go down Main Street in Stockton or Plainville or Grinnell or wherever and meet with people, meet with the businesses, talk to people about the issues that are going on. So
I think a lot of people would look at this district and say Western Kansas and say, everyone out there is the same. That's a pretty unified district. But I'm imagining that there's probably a lot more diversity in the people, the interests, the goals that you've met among people here in this district. Is it going to be a tough balancing act representing the 800,000 people of the 1st District?
It is to a degree. You know, on one hand, everyone's a Kansan. Everyone has a lot of the same values. It's still about agriculture. Agriculture is different in the Flint Hills versus in Goodland. The other day, I was in Emporia on Friday, and I was in Goodland that next Tuesday. You know, very different economies, but overall, a lot of the same basic values. And that's the importance of traveling, and I will be in all 69 counties every year, so you get a feel for all the different parts of the district, what they need, and can help you to advocate from there.
Very good. All right. We need to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with more Talking Democracy.
Technically, I'm a Republican, but I vote more moderately, and I've kind of been following loosely, not as much as I usually have in the past.
Registered Democrat, and I have been following the 1st District race. I'm not registered in the district, but I have been following that. I also been following the 4th District race from where I'm actually from, back in Wichita.
I have no idea what that last guy was talking about, but we're back with Tracey, Mann. And one of the things that I like to ask candidates, especially for a high-profile, high-demand position like Congress, is that there had to have been a long process of deliberating whether you even wanted to run or not. At campaign events, I've had the opportunity to meet your wife, Audrey, as well. Talk to me about the decision that you and Audrey had to go through in saying, okay, yes, Tracey Mann is going to put his name on the line and run for Congress.
Boy, that's a great question. Not a lot of people ask that, but it is a big decision because it's a huge lifestyle. It's a huge sacrifice, not only for me, but also for my family. We had this crazy idea, and we took 6 months and really thought through it. I'm a person of faith, prayed a lot about it. And then I listed on a piece of paper the 30 people that I wanted to ask and get their opinion, unbiased, if we should do this or not. Jerry Moran was on that list. Tom Hemmer, who's Jerry Moran's first chief of staff, who's chairing our steering committees, was on that list. Audrey, of course, our family. And we went to all those people and said, you know, here's the opportunity. Should we do this or not? And every single one of them said, you should do it and don't look back, and that's what we've been doing ever since. My wife is incredibly involved in the campaign, working. In fact, she's at the 3i show right now, working the booth with my mother and some other friends from Quinter, but my parents have been very helpful. My sister comes back and helps, my brother, Audrey's parents. It truly is a family thing, and if your family and closest friends aren't 100% behind it, I don't see how candidates do it. I really don't.
Absolutely. So you've been hitting the trail, and it's a huge effort, not just meeting these people, but also raising money. One of your opponents, Tim Huell's camp, has ads up on TV, and having experience campaigning before, a lot of people said, a guy like Tracey Mann doesn't have a shot. You can't fundraise because he hasn't run before, et cetera, et cetera. But you've had some pretty impressive numbers in your fundraising.
We've raised, all told, about $400,000 so far. And, yeah, we just have a different background. I don't know that maybe some people are surprised at the success that we've had. And a lot of our contributors and supporters have been people that have never been involved in the process before. And a lot of Jerry's key people over the years have been really helpful as well, kind of those two groups, and agriculture. That would be the third group that's been very, very helpful. And we're right in the thick of things and feel like we've got a great opportunity to win this election.
And